Well, since that Christmas Day terror plot, of course, President Obama has ordered increased security at airports, including more federal air marshals on international flights bound for the U.S. Could an air marshal, for example, have prevented this kind of attack from happening? Joining me live, Jamie Smith, a former federal air marshal instructor and former CIA paramilitary officer. There are a lot of people who say, look, if it gets to the airport, already the system has failed, that the first line of defense needs to be intelligence. But if we can put that aside for now and deal with what happened exactly in this case at the airport, where do you see the failures?
Good afternoon, Chris. Good to be with you again. The security at an airport needs to be a concentric ring where you have differing layers of security. You've got an outer perimeter, an inner, and then so forth. And in this case, we've got watch lists that he was picked up on. We have intelligence where he was noted earlier as being a potential problem. But at the airport, once somebody comes into the airport, and we've got TSA that puts an eye on them as they check their documentation. But what really needs to take place is additional screening prior to even getting to the ticket counter. And we need to be looking at behavioral profiling. And this is not profiling based on race or ethnicity, but it's profiling based on mannerisms, dress, behavior, and those types of things are indicators and can be indicators of someone that needs additional scrutiny. So the failure, I believe, is really more airport security needs to take place at the airport.
We had a former director, Jamie, of LL Security on our air earlier today, and he said every single passenger he thinks needs to be questioned. Would you agree with that?
Well, that's going to take an inordinate amount of time for people to board the aircraft if you're having to question every passenger. But if your personnel are trained to look for certain things, and as they, take for El Al, for instance, or the Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv, as you enter the airport, before you're even able to go to the ticket counter, you have to get in line and put your bag on a pre-screening device, and that is actually an opportunity for the airport personnel to walk the line and look for people displaying mannerisms and dress behavior that they consider questionable, and then they'll pull you off to the side and talk to you. In some cases, they'll take your cameras, they'll look through the pictures that you've taken. So they have some intelligence personnel, some security personnel there that touch you before you even make it to the ticket counter in the first place. So these types of things, the U.S. needs to look at it, and we need to be more proactive rather than reactive. Telling somebody they can't put a blanket on their lap or telling them that they're going to turn the GPS off before you land, that's ridiculous, because all you got to do is listen to the pilot, and if he says the flight takes 5 hours, you set your watch, and now you know when the plane's going to land. You don't need a GPS to tell you where you are.
Let me ask you finally, we only have a little bit of time, but there is always a question, as I've been speaking to members of Congress over the last couple of days, there is a finite amount of money. In terms of technology, where do you think the money ought to be spent? There is all this controversy over these puff machines that turned out to be pretty much useless. A little bit of dust got into them, then they were breaking down. They really weren't detecting a lot of the bomb materials, so they've been done away with, and there's millions of dollars down the drain. Where do you think the tech money needs to go?
Well, the backscatter radar, and there are microwave devices that allow you to scan the human body. There are different types of devices which allow you to scan the body without necessarily looking at anatomical body parts, which could be considered a serious invasion of privacy. But if we can, as a country, come up with trillions of dollars to bail our country out in the auto industry, I believe we could probably find the money to put some adequate technology to protect our citizenry as we are traveling the world. I believe that's probably a little bit more important than whether a certain car maker, can survive or not, as to whether a human being can survive. But the devices like backscatter radar and microwaves that allow you to examine the body as the person's moving through without actually seeing body parts, so to speak, that's a possibility. The downside to it is that you have health concerns if it's too powerful, and you have people that are traveling on a regular basis, that they're, in the case of microwaves, it may be irradiated to a point where they can see health problems down the road. But there are systems out there that can provide the needed security without endangering the privacy consideration as well as the health consideration.
All right, Jamie, thanks very much. We do appreciate that. And just to remind people that any minute now we'll be getting audio from President Obama, who's going to be talking about the latest